Hello, this is Chipicon, and this is the Wednesday show from Changing Times, Changing Worlds. I got a lovely suggestion from one of the people who listens, and they suggested Otherworldly as a name. And I'm thinking of going with that, because just calling it the Wednesday show just doesn't have a whole lot of oomph to it.
Doesn't really tell you what it's about.
No, it doesn't. But Otherworldly, yeah, it's kind of that.
And it's still very broad, so.
It still covers a whole lot of distance. So
yeah.
So that's that. And tonight's show is about tarot. And the guests tonight were suggested by Jenny, who was, since right now we got the gallery view. And Taryn Masterson and Karen Dehring are co-founders of the Back Porch, which I shall ask how they got that name, Folk Podcast, and creators of the Broke Bee Word Tarot Training Deck, which I sent you got one. It's a very cool deck. Their modern, minimalistic, and affordable starter deck brings tarot to every day. Keywords and modern archetypes make it easy to learn and use on a budget. Yes, it does. I have been spending like $50 to $75 on a tarot deck, and this was $750, I think. Not $1250.
$12.50.
Really affordable. And I want to remind everybody that because this is being recorded on and gets posted on our YouTube channel, if you don't want to be if you don't want your face, if you're looking like heck and haven't brushed your hair recently, feel free to turn your camera off and mute yourself when you're not asking questions. We do love questions, but when you're not asking a question, it's better not to have your dog or your kids in the background, especially when we get more people. But I just wanted to remind everyone, and I'm going to go to the chat now, and I'm going to put in the website for the Back Porch, because cool. I had fun poking around there today. There's the chat. Okay, it's gonna go in. Yes, you got to check, put it in the right place. I have a head cold today. I'm heal thyself. Not so good at that, and I'm not thinking very well tonight. So welcome, Kat. Taryn seems to be having some technical difficulties. Yeah, and oh yeah, use the chat if, that's the other thing. Use the chat if you don't want to unmute yourself and ask a question verbally. So I'm excited. Kat, you seem to be another SCA'er.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so, I joined the SCA in 1998. And I was introduced to it by the person who would become my second ex-husband. And I can say that of everything I got out of that relationship, the SCA was the winner. It was the best thing.
I like the SCA. A, you get costumes. B, you get the culture that we are recreating is quite often it is more, it's aimed at being honorable, and that's just a breath of fresh air in the modern world. And history, you get history, and people are very, very open-minded, so they don't really care if you if you're pagan, or if you're have alternate sexuality or whatever. So
you really have to go out of your way to be a complete jerk, to be hated in the SCA. I mean, you really got to put forth an effort. You know, and
to accomplish it, but we won't talk about them.
Yeah. I'm not saying we don't have our lemons, but for the most part, I would say 98% of the people I've met through the SCA have been lifelong friends.
Oh, they're wonderful people. My only regrets of the SCA is you get to know people. Say at Pensick, which for those who don't know, the SCA is a gathering in Western Pennsylvania annually, although not last year and probably not this year, where 10,000 to 15,000 people all get together in tents, wearing costumes and acting like medieval people. It's beautiful. And you get to know some people there that you only see there because they've come from the West Coast or Florida or Australia. And you know that if they lived in the same state, you get to be really close. Unfortunately, you get to meet all these wonderful people. Anyway, so that's not, and of course, the same thing could be said for changing times, changing worlds. There, as I have often said, there is just a release of tension when you don't have to pretend that psychic stuff isn't real, that magic isn't real. When you can just accept that it's real, let's move on with it. And tonight, the next question I wanted to ask is, which of you is the artist?
That would be me.
You did all the drawings?
Oh, yeah.
See these drawings. Do you have any vision? Do you do the share screen thing, or?
I don't know technology that well.
Okay, yeah, well, I understand. I haven't learned share screen myself, but I've seen people do it, and it's cool.
I know how to do it. What are you looking to do?
Well, just show some of these beautiful cards.
Okay.
But we'll let Kat direct us on that, because they are modern. Guess we get away from the SCA here. They're modern, but they're really direct. They create a much more direct line in how things work. Yeah, there we go. The Hermit, that's the one I was going to ask for. The Hermit has got his through there.
The colors aren't true, but
yeah. The Hermit,
you're getting the light from the but as you can see, they are more relatable to modern people. Some people get hung up. The SCA isn't for everybody, and some people get hung up on the I don't relate to medieval images, which a lot of tarot decks are.
What'll amuse you to no end is I am a scribe in the SCA.
Oh, that will amuse me.
When I did the cards, I tried to make them relatable to people nowadays. And whereas in the Middle Ages, the tarot cards made sense, they don't to people nowadays. So the one that she's holding, which is the Hermit, what I base that on is when I went to APSU down in Clarksville, I had a favorite librarian, and she had a countdown calendar to when she was retiring. And her motto was, "Don't drag me out of my office." You know, she was a hermit. She loved information. And if you went in there and had a really good question or a really obscure reference book you wanted, she was happy as a clam. And she is who I base the Hermit on, as just an older woman that's incredibly knowledgeable, knows her stuff, but don't bother her with trivial, just don't. And
can you turn it upside down, Jen? This is another really cool thing about this. If you look on the corner, you can see there are keywords or phrases. And if you turn it reversed, it's got the reversed meaning on there.
Yep. And that one is all Taryn. That's her handwriting. That's her that's just all Taryn. She came up with that. And I did the pictures, and then the carpet page, which is the back of the card. That's a collaboration between us. So, we really.
Now, what is that?
You can't quite read it really, because doesn't seem to be complete sentences and.
Is
Would
it
it?
each of the phrases? Oh,
It's basically, we wanted to do what's called Greeking in the print industry.
Oh, okay.
Nonsensical. And I really wanted her to keep using her handwriting, so she wrote everything out and then she just distressed the heck out of the card.
Okay.
And so, because the idea is that we base this also on a mythical character we came up with, which is a young woman with a backpack and a dog traveling the United States, taking her, off year, so to speak.
can you find the full?
Yep. That's on the back of the box. And
The dog looks familiar.
the dog is based on my favorite deceased pet, Finnegan,
Okay.
who was a husky something or other. And we wanted these cards to look like they'd lived in a backpack, that they were somebody's journal. And we also wanted to give people the feeling that, you spend $12, you get comfortable, you learn the meanings, but then it's okay to put these cards down and go to what you need to know next. We're very big on saying it's a training deck. We're not saying you have to throw it away or you have to quit using it, but it's not one that you have to stick with for the rest of your life. Oh, the 5 of Cups.
I love her.
She is basically, that one came about. I used to work for a company called CPR Microwave back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And little by little, the signs were there that the company wasn't doing well. And I got to stick it out longer than most people, but every day a group of people would have this look on their face and have all their crap in a box, walking out. And to me, that was the best way to sum up that card. So
that card spoke to me. I got mine today in the mail, and I already have favorites. What was it, like the 4 of coins? I loved the coins. The coins were really spoke to me. The 4 and the 5.
Here's the
And
knot.
I loved the 4 of
oh yeah. Yeah, the original piece of artwork for that, I think we're going to turn into a t-shirt, but don't quote me on it. But I had a really dear cousin of mine named Diane that was very posh, but also very self-reliant, she's just one of those people that exuded class without snobbery.
Nice.
So that's who I thought of when I drew that card.
oh, do you remember the 8 of Wands? I just found that one there.
Yeah, hold it up and let me see. Because you got to remember, some of these we voted in or out. Oh yeah, that one. If my grandmother was alive, she'd be really depressed because she was a big fan of going to the mailbox and getting letters. And she loved getting, she had a Kentucky accent. So she'd say, I love getting my letters from afar. And so when I did that one, it just occurred to me that it was like getting a letter, getting your message. So
Got it.
I will tell you, I've been trying all my life to learn to read tarot, and I've got half a dozen decks or so. And I'm always looking back to the little booklet and seeing what it says they mean. But with these cards, I just laid out some cards and read.
yeah. Well, and the thing is not everybody has my advantage. My grandmother made pin money, as she would call it, and she had little gigs, and she
Okay.
read tea leaves, tarot cards, palms. And so when you grow up with it, it's I can't explain to you the day I really started reading all by myself, but little by little you get it.
Yeah.
And Taryn's the opposite. She had to teach herself. And we just really broke down like what stops people, what makes people, just put the cards down and never come back. And it's going to that little damn book and trying to read this microscopic print and
Makes sense.
taking an hour to read 3 stupid cards. And we were like, why don't we just make it simple without it being like Fisher Price?
Mhm. And it's still for the reader to come up with some intuition of their own,
Yeah.
get together.
The relatable pictures help with that.
Yes.
Oh, here's a good one. I like this one. Let's see if you can.
Oh, yeah, where she's kind of greedy and grasping.
Yeah.
Mm.
The grab, but you're greedy and grasping. You're going to the next one.
Oh yeah, that's kind of the other end of the.
She's like, I need it. But yes, definitely grasping, and people aren't going to relate to medieval, but they will relate to that.
Then there are some of the darker images like this one.
Oh yeah, and some of that is the fact that I worked in the healthcare industry. I was a dialysis tech, a phlebotomist. I worked in ER quite a bit. So a lot of times I would see these poor souls come in and you could see just complete and utter despair. You could see people that the knot in their rope is unraveled. And so when I illustrated these cards, a lot of my life experience shows up in them. So
that's understandable. And that's what makes a tarot deck unique, is that the artists and creators put themselves into them.
yeah. And anybody that, because I have had a couple people that don't know me have actually sent some notes that have said, you must have worked in a hospital. I recognize that. I recognize this.
I love the personal aspect of, I have 40 or so tarot decks, because each one expresses something a little bit different. And let's just say, while I am confident, and I've been reading tarot cards for over 50 years, I am probably going to use this one for certain types of readings. It's just, it expresses the modern world so beautifully.
And the thing is I also tried not to make it look too much like a trend that was happening in 2020, because 10 years from now, I don't want it to look as dated as, June Cleaver pearls and a big skirt.
No one's calling it the pandemic deck, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Which I hear somebody is working on, and I think it's probably one of the worst ideas ever, but
Oh.
Each to their own. So do you guys have any other cards you want to know what they're about, or?
Well, I was kind of hoping we'd have more people in the audience asking, but so Henry, you got any-
I will tell you that my favorite card that I kept in the deck, I fought for it, is the Chariot being illustrated by 2 huskies going in opposite directions.
have you had huskies?
Yes.
Or just dogs that drag you?
Yep. And my current dog is a Samoyed Husky mix.
Beautiful.
And the thing about Huskies is that if you are not confident and you don't really hold the leash or the reins on them, and you just really exude, that I am the one driving this, A husky will take you for a drag.
Yes.
They will pretty much just have a lot of fun at your expense. So to my mind, having somebody confidently walking a pair of those, to me, exemplified the chariot. And I have had some husky people that were like, yes, this is husky.
Indeed.
So it is one of my favorites.
Oh, Jen, could you find the devil? That's
All right.
a little bit problematic for many of us.
See what I can turn up here.
Well, I can
Yeah,
tell you,
well.
the devil is what you tie yourself to.
Or you think you're tied to whether you are or not.
Yeah, well, the devil, as my granny and other people in my family like to say, is that the devil doesn't have to come find you. 98% of the time, you come find him, and then you're the one that makes those ties, which means it's up to you to break them. And if you tie yourself up to something that ain't good for you, it's on you to get your way out.
It was the one exactly before the chariot in the deck.
Yeah.
To get there.
And the reason why with the devil, I've got him and his acolytes tied to cell phones is that I think it's more appropriate nowadays to liken the fact that we interface more with a phone than actual people. And that's kind of like the meth, the candy, the addiction of not interacting or getting truth. You're getting the truth that little box wants to give you. So.
And we've certainly seen the difficulties of taking your news from Twitter.
Yeah. Or the fact that, a lot of young gals have gotten to the point of suicide because they can't make themselves look like the people in their TikTok, Twitter, or whatever. And they don't realize those images are doctored and that there's filters. And so because they're not interacting with enough of humanity to realize that beautiful people like that are 1%, and that 1%, 98% of them is makeup and filters. So
Yep.
So
I want you to say a little bit more about the process, about how you and Taryn came about to make this. You say you voted on certain ones.
Well,
you drew many more than 72.
Oh yeah. There was at least, I think 80 some, 90 maybe. I have like there's a forest of trees in my room here of what I drew. And I do have to back up and give you a little history on me and Taryn so it'll make sense. Up here because I'm up around the Syracuse, New York area. I actually live in a little town called Mexico. And there's a Renaissance fair that happens up here.
Or used to.
And I went to go work for it because I needed money, which that was a problematic statement right there because you really don't make money at that thing. But I did make some of the best friends that a girl could get. And one of them was Taryn. And Taryn and I clicked because she had become a reader. She didn't like gatekeeper culture, which I don't care for either, which is holier than thou people who, want to lord their whatever over people and tell them they're wrong. Our feeling is that, why is it you can't make things accessible to people and share the information and, You know, there's no sin in making money doing something, but how much money do we really need to charge to turn a profit?
Oh,
So
God. I hear you.
from that initial encounter, we kept throwing the ball back and forth to each other about, you know, how much does a deck really need to cost? So once we got those numbers in, we went back and forth on the concept of the deck. And we both agreed that a deck that could help people, because 99% of the time working the run fair or anything else, that's the first thing people said. I have all these decks, I can't read them, I can't get it. And so from there, we both, because she had ended a relationship, moved back home to North Carolina. I was still up here, and I'm not swimming in dough. I work as a at-home VA caregiver to a veteran. We just were commiserating on our poverty, and we both kind of came up with the fact that, you know, we are broke B word. And that's kind of where the deck came from, as a tongue in cheek
Things.
that. And we also, I think it's on our website or maybe not, but anybody can be a broke bee. We don't care your gender. We don't care how old you are. All you need to do is have ever in your life not had enough cash, and you can join our club. And all of our products, we look at rock bottom, how to get it at the cheapest price we can. And then, you know, some places quadruple to make a profit. Because we go rock bottom, you know, I'm not going to give you the exact formula, but we don't go nuts with it. We do enough to make back the cost and a little extra. And our business plan is to keep coming up with affordable products that will bring people back, because once you buy the tarot deck, you know, you're done. You're not going to buy like 8 of them unless it's Christmas. So now we have the tarot cloth, which has my art on it. And it's a cloth that is silky, and you lay it on the table, and then you put our cards in the spaces, and then you know how to read it. We have the workbook, which the workbook is to get the cost down. You buy the guts of it, and we tell you to go out and get the 3-ring binder that makes your heart go pitter pat. And then you stick the middle in that binder, and then you've got these loose pages with my artwork, and it's got stuff in there like, what's today's date, how you feeling, you know, what cards did you get, what are the meanings. And then, you know, you can flip back, it'll say like, go back a week or whatever, how did this pan out?
I could share my screen of that if Chipicon knows how to allow others to share a screen, maybe another time.
Yeah, but and that whole thing.
What I have got, I've got the in the chat is the
Link, yeah.
the link, which people who are on YouTube will not be able to hear. So that would be www. Back Porch Magic, all one word, and magic with a K.
Yep.
And you can, and that will take you to the thing and the website, and where you can find the link to the podcast, and apparently a link to tarot readings. So I guess you do tarot readings.
Taryn does video tarot readings. We have some other gals that are coming on board. It's a new venture for us, and we're very proud to do it, but it took a little bit of doing because we have a code of ethics that, you know, people have to agree to if they want to be one of our readers and link through our site. And you know, plus
I'm going to say I love the cards. they've got a Krampus card I'm definitely buying next year.
Oh, the greeting cards. Yeah, I did those.
The Yule Cat is and it's got a pumpkin patch card and variety packs and Maiden Mother Crone cards and Holly King. And it's got some, I love the artwork, and there's cards here that you're not going to find someplace else. And probably if the next time you need a card, there may be new ones. That it's just very cool.
And the thing is that also leads into the fact that right now I'm doing the concept art for the deck of the Seelie and Unseelie Fae Oracle deck.
Oh, nice.
So just for you guys, here's a sneak peek, if you can see it.
Oh, yeah.
That's
nice.
one of them. And then this is Queen Mab. This is one of my favorite ones.
Oh,
Ooh, I love the horse.
Yep. She's given that stink face because Queen Mab is exemplified by the fact that she really has no tolerance for BS. Oh, here we go. This is the last one I'll show you. This is Hags. Because this is Unseelie Fae here. There we
Like
go.
the design.
Yep. So,
I'm a
and
little bit uncomfortable with the concept of hags because ageism is something we need to work on. But
the thing about hags in the Unseelie Fae is that when you look at like Baba Yaga, when you look at Jenny Greenteeth, when you look at these archetype hags, they are death, they're the end, they're winter, they're the last bus stop, but they're also the repository of knowledge and everything you need to know. Mm-hmm. So especially Baba Yaga, you know, she's a cannibal on a house with chicken legs, you know, with skulls on her fence post. But yet, you know, when this girl has to come to her because her evil stepmother sends her there thinking Baba Yaga is going to eat her, then Baba Yaga, you know, relents and doesn't eat the girl because the girl manages to do all these tasks that are set before her. And she says, I'll tell you what, kid, I am going to send you back home to your stepmother. She sent you here to get a coal to light the fire. I'm going to give you that in a human skull. And won't she be surprised when you come home, you know, and I didn't eat you. And the girl is like, oh, thank you, grandmother. And she's just incredibly, you know, polite, which you do that with cannibals. And you know, and the thing is with hags is that their whole thing in the pantheon and in the mythology and in the belief system is that tread warily. They got to their age for a reason, and they will eat you if you know, don't approach them with the reverence they're due. Mm-hmm. So, and one of the things that I have the hardest time when I deal with people who are new to the path is that Hollywood and popular novels in that don't quite paint a picture when you're dealing with the Fae that is quite how it should be. And so, you know, I met a really, really nice kid that I loved her to death, but she couldn't figure out why her world was upside down. Like every other day there was a major catastrophe. And I said to her one day, I was like, what are you doing? Because I said, you keep coming to me for readings and I keep getting these cards that are all contradictory, and the readings were just constantly saying you're in chaos. And finally she said, well, I think I'm on a fairy or fae path. And I'm like, okay, great, groovy. And she said, but I decided that I wanted to call on a water spirit. I chose Alicia, which Alicia is a very beautiful green-haired woman. She's kind of got seaweedy hair, but she likes to grab you, take you under the water to her kingdom and drown your ass. That's her MO. And I said, you know, when you're going to a being like that as your intermediary for knowledge, for whatever, the only thing she's got for you is chaos and death and trying to drown you, which would be depression. So if, you know, everything's going wrong in horrific cycles, it's because you've invited that in. I said, the only thing worse than Alicia is a puka, because they look like a beautiful horse that you can't help but get on its back, and then it takes you into a pond and it drowns you. So, you know, that's where I came up with the Oracle deck, because it's going to be a teaching deck too, so that you can understand what these different beings, because I give you clues just like I did with the other deck about what they're about. And the unseelie fae, a lot of people also make the mistake of labeling them as evil. And when you're dealing with fae, good and evil really aren't a concept you can apply to either side. It's just one side has a more benevolent attitude towards humanity than the other, but both of them will screw you over if given a chance. So what I tell people is that is not something to play with right out the box as a newly minted Wiccan witch, whatever you want to call yourself. Fae are something you work yourself up to. Tread slow and know what you're getting into. So that is Mama Cat's sermon on Fae and why the Oracle of the Seelie and Unseelie is coming out.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Okay, now I know there's a podcast. Is that both of you?
Oh yeah. I gotta warn everybody about the podcast. It is unbridled, two besties on a back porch talking crap. You do not want to play this for your granny if she's going to wash your mouth out with soap. We let a few F-bombs, you know, happen. My dear friend Anthony Rangeles was on there talking about phallic worship. So, you know, you may not want to play it in front of your 8-year-old. We did use a lot of medical terms and it was done respectfully, but fair warning, you know, we talk about everything.
I rewatched Blazing Saddles, which is one of the funniest movies, but people say, well, they use the N-word. It must be a racist movie. It's like, it's an anti-racist movie. And they make it quite clear that all the racists are friggin' idiots as well as a-holes. So
the guy that played the sheriff, his name was Taryn something. Anyways, he gave a really great interview with Terry Gross on NPR in the late 90s, where he said that Gene Wilder and a few other people had the hardest time saying the N-word, you know, because it was in the script and he would be there. And finally, he said he had to like gather people around and go, at the top of our lungs, on 3, we are going to yell. And, you know, just to get everybody where they could go with it. I will say our podcast doesn't do that.
That's like my 4th grade teacher was one of my mother's friends, and apparently they had workshops to help desensitize the older teachers. And so they sat around for an hour with the F-bomb, and some of the old ladies were going, I can't say it. Okay, but they said basically they had them repeating it until it was no longer going to get them in a tizzy and they could actually deal with it. So that's, yeah, it is appropriate for especially whites to learn to not casually drop the F-bomb, but at the same time, don't act like it's, you know, if you don't use that word, you're being awakened.
I worked in some very interesting clinics, and one of which I worked at was in New Orleans shortly after Katrina, getting
Ooh.
the dialysis units back up. And being at a brand new clinic and I didn't know people, you know, I did the really excruciating polite thing for about 10 minutes. And then I realized that I was going to have to pull out my Urban Dictionary and get real with these folks. And there was a sea of surprised faces when I finally did tell them exactly where the bear gets it in the woods, because they weren't paying attention and I couldn't get people on machines and sanitize if they were going to keep, you know, acting a fool. So it's interesting how English is very much an evolving language, but so is dialect and colloquialisms. So being from way up north, I was born in Michigan. When I got to New Orleans and said, y'all are going to line up side by each, I'm going to assign you a chair and we're going to get this going. They all looked at each other. They looked at me and they went, side by each. And I went, no, you here, you here. And they're like, side by side. And I'm like, yeah, like I said. So, anyway.
Yeah, well, side by each. I understood it and didn't sound odd to me, but I'm a New Englander, so.
I'm telling you, I never understood French until I kind of, you know, went to the Pig Latin of French, which is down in New Orleans. And oh my gosh, they boo and share, and you know, I really learned a ton of these little French phrases. So, and some of them I won't ever repeat anywhere else, but okay.
or you might, I'm just saying, what I would have learned in New Orleans was beignets. Boy, I tell you, when I discovered beignets, my life just lots of.
I'm getting to try one someday.
I'll make you some. They're not that hard.
Yes, they're amazing. I would have thought that it's like, oh my gosh, this is, no, they're really easy. And I make them, I'm probably going to make some tomorrow because I've talked about them and I must make them. They're so good. And you could eat too many so easily.
Well, the reason not to make them then, I guess.
Don't get me talking about food. I can talk about food forever. So I have talked, so you've got your podcast where you have two pagan ladies being totally honest with each other.
And we talk about everything, including my love for Keanu Reeves, not in the dirty, weird way. It's just, you know, I want to adopt Keanu and make him my BFF because he just seems really cool. Taryn talks about her love for Dolly Parton and the chick that played Hermione Granger. That's okay. Her two besties. Okay. Occasionally we rip Mitch McConnell a new hole because we don't like him. And we take in viewer mail and read about things, or we listen to people like the guy that called us up because his mom bought a doll at a flea market that the doll kept moving around his bedroom and knocking crap over. And
finally to leave him, right?
Yeah, nobody would believe him until finally the mom saw what was going on. And he doesn't know if she burnt the doll or what she did, but she made it disappear and all the crazy crap ended.
Mm.
Which I'm like, I would have been out there with some, lighter fluid and a match. I would have been, bye-bye, Elmo.
Mhm.
So we do that. We also teach each other a piece of folklore, mythology, everything from, I taught her what a cat she is, which is a fairy cat. She has taught about different religions that have popped up in the last 10 years. Last night she talked about Lupercalia. I talked about Cupid, how he wasn't a fat little flying baby for a long time. He started out for the Greeks as Eros, and he was an
Yeah.
adult.
Is that how you got into phallic worship?
Yeah, phallic worship. We did that a couple weeks ago. That's in go to Spotify. It's in our backlog.
Mhm.
And that's our friend Anthony's writing a book, which
Oh, I like to
when
keep it.
yeah, when he's ready to start getting that bugger out there and published, we'll be pumping that up. Last night we did our podcast with Nana the Witch, and if you go to TikTok, she's a big time influencer. She and I are the same age. We're 53, and really sweet lady. We enjoyed that. And we have coming up Dr. B, who's a friend of mine. She's an actual, real, honest to God family doctor. And we are bringing her on so that she can kick some of the stupid myths in the tail that people are like, I don't want to hear any more of this. I won't take any type of vaccine. She'll tell you the God's own truth. She's vaccinated her own children. The COVID vaccine, she'll give the truth on, yeah, the second shot, you may have flu-like symptoms because it is a little bit higher dosage of the, antigen that's kicking your immune system on.
Mhm.
But a little bit of flu-like symptoms versus being dead from COVID, take your pick. And we've also had people that have, for whatever reason, because some, person that runs this thing called Goop, Gwyneth Paltrow,
Yes.
sells these crystals that you're supposed to stick up your hoo-ha and do all this. And, she's going to debunk what a bad plan that is.
Mhm.
And, just different things. And I have known Dr. B forever. I knew her when she was a high school senior, and she traveled the Ren Fair circuit with me on summers earning money for college. So that's how long I have I've known Dr. B, and she's going to be on our show answering all these great questions and basically telling people how it is. And she's very open-minded. Like, she is not someone that automatically rules out holistic medicine or, wanting to visit a shaman to have a cleansing ceremony.
Mhm.
She has this view that that's good, but what medications can help? Let's mix the science in balance with the spiritual. So I'm looking forward to hearing from her.
It sounds cool.
Yeah.
We are a little bit more specialized here because we are talking about all of the spooky foo, occult, supernatural, paranormal stuff.
Well, and we do. I mean, I talked about when I was a kid, I saw a mud man, which, I wasn't terrified of him. And my granddad, who once I described it, was like,
He was
oh, they're harmless, It's basically a creature that looks like it's made out of mud and sticks and vines and stuff. And you see them around swampy areas, or you see them on fence lines and pastures. And at first they just look like a clump of sticks and whatever, but they have like enormous green eyes. And they're just like a green man type creature. They're benign. They might have an interest in you, but they have no ill intent. So, a cousin of mine, however, saw something, same location up north where my grandparents lived. She lost her damn mind, refused to go anywhere near that part of the woods that surrounded where they lived. And to this day, I think she, I don't think you could drag her anywhere near that spot.
Yeah, our kids have crossed over from this world to the other world on, well, if not our property, up the mountain from us a little bit. And well, let's just say my daughter saw a unicorn, and I was able to offer her, okay, you saw a unicorn, you probably were then in the other world. So that's not, I don't believe it. It's just like, oh, well, then you probably were under having some other circumstance.
Well, in the Celtic belief system that was in Ireland primarily, they had a kind of a reincarnation idea. But one of the things that comes down is that little children and old people are more attuned to the other world and can see things, because children are so fresh from the well of being to coming into the world that they haven't, their soul hasn't hardened up enough like a chicken egg to not see that. And then the people who are at the other end that are getting older and have far fewer days ahead than behind, that shell is breaking down because their soul is getting ready to return to that well. So they can see more. And that's the belief system that I kind of grew up with, is that when little kids would say they saw something, we would never approach it as you're full of crap, but we also didn't encourage them. If it frightened them, we would say, oh, you can avoid doing that again, cross yourself, do whatever, but
these are the things you have to be careful about, and these are the things that this is how you can protect yourself. It's like teaching a kid how to use fire or the stove or knives safely. You give them the skills they need.
Yeah, and my granddad was huge. If you found a stone with a natural hole in it,
Never
you had to keep it, because yeah. So yeah, I grew up with a lot of that.
I think all of the various, it doesn't matter where you're from, they're going to have some local folk beliefs, and that's. I'm just excited. I'm going to go back again to your cards, because I really want people to be aware. This is available. It's this is what it looks like. Go to the website. This is good if you have friends who are thinking about learning tarot. If you set it aside and said, oh, it doesn't work for me, try this. It's not going to be a major investment. And I really like that you have the ethic of getting it to people so that they can afford it. I worked a Ren fair for a while, whatever it was before it turned into King Richard's Fair. And well, the thing is that I was having people lined up 12 deep at 6 o'clock when they closed. And so I said, you need to hire more soothsayers. People want their fortune told when they go to a fair. And they said, well, just put your prices up. That'll cut it down. And I said, no reason to spend more money. Just get twice as many soothsayers. You get twice as many satisfied customers. And he said, no, well, the other soothsayer's perfectly happy to. And it's like, the attitude really, really bugs me. It's like, no.
Well, and the thing is that the run fairs that I worked for in the past never had as high a cut as the one that I met Taryn at. I won't give specifics, but it was way more than industry standard. And it was run kind of like a cattle pen, where there was always more readers than there was clientele, so to speak.
Oh, really?
And they would constantly keep running these people, like, you'd have to go to the bathroom and you'd be like, I'll be right back, and it would just be this crush. And you really couldn't take time to really suss out in a reading what you wanted to. It was, I call it chainsaw reading. You're like, you're flipping out the cards, and I just never had really had that in other fairs. What had happened is people would come up to you, you'd negotiate the amount of time, with a minimum being 15 or 30 minutes, whatever the fair.
Mhm.
And then as you were closing in on the sand was wearing down, you could say to them, would you like to purchase more time? And and the way this was done, it was very automated, factory like. And it also occurred to me that a lot of the people who were sitting there at my booth were all saying the same thing, that they had spent, some of them, $50 to $100 on these beautiful decks, and they were just gathering dust. And we were like, well, if you learned how to read off of a very simple deck that got you into it, would you return to the cards that you spent so much money on? And they were like, oh yeah, of course. And plus, the other part of this is that there are really obscure, weird decks out there that if you really don't have a firm foundation in what these archetypes mean,
Mhm.
if you write out the bat, get like the Salvador Dali tarot, melting clocks and all that, you're going to be lost. There's just no figuring it out unless you want to memorize that little book. So, my goal is that you have fun with it and you can get back to the deck you've been longing for, or you can keep ours for the rest of your life. I won't be deeply offended if you buy my deck, use it for 2 years, and graduate to the one that you really like. I'm okay with that.
One more reader in the world.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I also stress to people that it doesn't have to be your goal to be whatever a professional reader is, but if you're a kitchen table reader for your best friends, or it's just for yourself, that's totally cool. That's great. I'm happy. We don't need any more pseudo bad accented cape wearing weirdos that lay out the cards and say, oh, I'm sorry, but somebody cursed you, and for $50 I could lift that, screw you. No, just have fun with it. And that's all I'm asking, is just, have a good time, enjoy what it is that you're doing, and just, like the fact that if you look at my cards, I have all orientations sexually on there, all different races. I even have a drag queen on one of my cards.
Yes, I noticed. That was wonderful. Oh, I've got a question in from the Facebook Live. What's your favorite spread?
I use the one that my family taught me the most, and it's called a Tinker's spread.
Hold it up again. I'm gonna concentrate on you there.
Oh yeah, there's my drag queen one.
Mhm.
So cool. But your favorite spread?
Oh, that one, that card she's holding up, because that one's special. It's inspired by Taryn's sister who beat breast cancer.
All right.
Nice.
So
That is-
that's where that one came from.
And I love the concept of strength because as a historian, I know that strength was originally Samson, that they misunderstood that the long hair meant it was a woman who was holding the lion's mouth shut.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's spiritual strength, it's inner strength. So I love all the way through the deck, I keep finding these beautiful interpretations. I'm loving it.
Yes.
But you're back to your favorite
My
spread.
favorite is the one that my family did, and it's called a Tinker Spread because that's what we were. And it's 4 cards. Well, okay. If I'm sitting and I'm dealing to you, everybody pretend that you're across from me.
Yep.
It's 4 on the top, and the 4 cards on the top identify the situation, if you want to call it that. Then in the middle is past, present, and future. So that's 3 cards. And then under that is 4 cards, which is a resolution or an answer. Or every once in a while, I'll get 2 pairs of conflicting cards, which is fate in motion, basically. Whatever your situation is, it can't give a resolution because depending on what you do the minute you walk out that door is going to dictate your resolution, and the cards, they're not there yet with it. A good example of that was I did a reading at the shop I was working at in Syracuse where I had conflicting resolution cards. I dealt out an additional 3 to see if I could get more clarification, and it was, again, conflicting cards, reversals and that sort of thing. And I finally said to the gal, I said, I know that you're keeping this close to your chest. You didn't want to give me too much information, but when I get this, it means that even you haven't made up your mind about a situation. What is it you're wrestling with? And she said to me, she goes, I have a friend of mine in another town that my husband doesn't know the address to where she lives. And if I leave here, I've got everything in my car and I could just go, he wouldn't figure it out. And I said, so what's your question? She said, well, if I do this, we're done. And I said, well, what put you in that car to make you consider it? And she goes, sometimes he gets mad. I said, I've heard enough. The cards are saying you haven't made up your mind because you are on the fence post. I said, you don't need a deck of cards. You need to reach down inside yourself and say, where do I want to be in a year? Do I want to be in a fear-based relationship where I close my eyes every night, not knowing if I've got a trip to the emergency room in my future? Or do you want to go through some hardship with the promise of waking up knowing that you have a future that is yours to command? That is what your deal is. And she looked at me and she said, I don't want to be afraid anymore. And I said, well, there you go. You've got your answer. You didn't need cards. And to this day, I don't know when she drove away, which direction she went, but I would like to think that she went to her friend's house. And,
Yeah.
and that's the thing about being a reader. Sometimes people come to you with stuff that, things I will never touch. I need to know if my mom's going to die. I don't read for that. Because fate is always in motion and things can happen that can look very awful this minute and change. The cards are not ever intended to be a fortune telling device of, if they worked that way, I would have lottery numbers, and they don't. They just sort of point you in directions, or they help you clarify seeing where the train went off the tracks. I will never read for, I had a lady sit down once at a Ren fair, and she said, my husband is getting out of prison and I've been living with his brother. I didn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. I'm like, no.
No right answer.
Yeah, I'm not getting involved in that. I said,
Information looking for? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
People with serious medical conditions. I went to this shamanic whatever. He told me I could stop my insulin. Could you do a reading? No, I'm not doing a reading. That's stupid. Go see an endocrinologist, go see a doctor. I will never let the cards dictate what you should do, because they're not intended for that. And no.
You're also not there to fact check other oracles.
Yeah. I don't play that game, and I will never advocate quitting a life-saving therapy. That's between you and your doctor and your deity. I don't want to get anywhere in between any one of those three.
My short form on that one is I don't think that cards or any divination system is there to make decisions for you. If you're trying to duck responsibility by turning it over to a greater whatever, you can pray, deal with the gods yourself. But soothsaying is another source of information when you have exhausted the internet, when you exhausted the experts in the field, when you have information you need, but it's not there to make decisions for you. You have to make those decisions yourself.
And the thing is like when people say to me, will I ever find love again?
Mm-hmm.
The tarot doesn't define love. Like if you're thinking hot, romantic,
That's passion.
yeah, that's a world of difference. Soulmate, forever and a day, wedding bells, that's a different question. And the tarot will never, ever come out and say that you will never be loved, because in some form or another, we all have love. We may not recognize it, but we do. The question you ask dictates the better the reading, so to speak. But I have to be like brutally honest.
Oh my goodness, we've run over, but
Yeah.
My thought is,
go back to brutally honest. And finish the thought.
if you're doing this as a lark and you're just having a good time, ask for a general reading and just whatever kicks up. If you are asking, will I find a lover? That is a whole different kettle of fish from will I find romantic love? So, know what it is you're asking. And if you have no clue, just say, I'd like a general reading and see what happens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And people can get these by going to your website.
Oh yeah.
And which to repeat is the Back Porch Magic with a K.
With a K.
And I suggest anybody who really needs, there's no reason not to have training wheels when you're learning to ride a bike. And this is a very affordable, wonderful way of doing it. Perhaps sometime when Taryn isn't having technical difficulties, we'll have and talk about something else. But I probably ought to stop because we have run over.
Yeah. And on my way out the door, I will say that we'd be happy to come back and talk about the Oracle, the Seelie and Unseelie.
Oh, eagerly.
We are launching a story podcast. It's going to be just like in the old days, you used to tune into your radio stories.
Mhm.
It's a metaphysical soap set in the fictional town of Otterby about two witches who own a occult bookstore and all the crazy crap that happens in this tiny little town in the South. So when that launches, we'd be glad to, we want everybody to just tune in to the crazy.
Put
You
that
may
on
finally get me hooked on podcasts.
Times. If you could
It's-
put a
it's-
note on the Changing Times, Changing Worlds Facebook page, it would be great.
Yep. It's got everything in there. Werewolves, pixies, witches,
Wonderful.
a drunk sheriff. You got to show up.
Okay, well, we will thank you and apologize for anybody who only gets an hour of time. I suppose this is what happens on your podcast.
Yeah, we run over too. So everybody have a great night. I got to let my dogs out.
Thanks for everybody who came. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's see, stop and